Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the show. So, we're going to talk Tupac tonight and the new information regarding the case. And I'm going to tell his entire story from beginning to end, including theories about his passing, what I think about those theories, whether I agree with them, disagree, why I agree or disagree, and then I'm going to say my thoughts about it. So let's dive into this. And give me one second. So Tupac Amaru Shakur was born in New York City on June 16th, 1971. He was raised by a single mother. In 1984, his mother moved him and his siblings to Baltimore, where he attended Roland Park Middle School for eighth grade and Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School for ninth. In the 10th grade, he transferred to the Baltimore School for the Performing Arts to study acting, poetry, ballet, and jazz. It was here he became good friends with actress Jada Pinkett, and he also developed his rapping skills. He would join talent shows at the school and won most of them, becoming the best rapper at the school. So in 1989, his mother moved them to San Francisco, where he attended high school for another year or so, and then got his GED later on. So in 1989, under the name MC New York, he began his rapping career. His manager planned a concert with his rap group Strictly Dope and managed to get them signed with the rap group Digital Underground as a roadie and backup singer. In January of 91, he debuted under the stage name Tupac for Interscope Records for Digital Underground's single Same Song, which was used in the movie Nothing But Trouble, in which Tupac also appeared. Fast forward a little bit, and he did his debut solo album, Tupacalypse Now, which was a play off of the movie Apocalypse Now. That first album was certified gold, selling 500,000 copies, with songs like If My Homie Calls, Trapped, and Brenda's Got a Baby. It would eventually influence many future rappers, such as Eminem, Nas, The Game, and others. His second album, with hits like I Get Around and Keep Your Head Up, would sell over 1 million copies. His song Dear Mama is in the National Recording Registry at the National Archives in the Library of Congress. It was the third hip hop song to get that honor. All right. So over the years, he sold millions of albums and influenced so many rap artists, soon becoming a rap legend. In 1993, Tupac would meet Christopher Wallace, also known as Biggie Smalls or the notorious B.I.G. They would become good friends. This would change in 1994, though, when Tupac was attacked at Quad Studios in New York City. Since Biggie and Puffy were at the studios when it happened, naturally Tupac thought that they were involved. This event would eventually trigger a nationwide feud between Bad Boy Records, Death Row Records, and fans of East Coast rap versus West Coast rap. Now, right around the time of the robbery, Tupac was on trial for assaulting somebody, R word. He was acquitted of these, but convicted of basically touching somebody without their permission, forcibly, and sentenced to 1.5 to 4.5 years. Side note, before the events at Quad Studios, Tupac was involved with a fight with 2 undercover cops where projectiles were thrown, and this was on Halloween of 93. All those charges were dropped for both parties. So Tupac gets convicted. He gets sentenced to 1.5 to 4.5 years. While he's away, while he's in there, Suge came and visited him. Offered to bail him out for $1.5 million in exchange for 3 albums for Death Row. This was on September 16th, 1995. That was the beginning of the end for Tupac. A lot of people say he made a deal with the devil. So fast forward to April 96. Orlando Anderson and other South Side Crips robbed Mob Piru member and associate of Suge Knight and took his Death Row medallion. This would eventually set off the events that happened on September 7th of 96, in which Tupac lost his life. Okay, now let's talk about those events. September 7th, Las Vegas, Nevada. Tupac and Suge, with other friends, were attending a boxing match of Mike Tyson's. After the match ended, as they were walking out of the casino, Trayvon Lane, which was the guy that had his medallion stolen, pointed out that Orlando Anderson was in the casino and that he was the one that stole it. So Tupac heard this, goes and attacks Orlando Anderson. Suge Knight joins in along with others from Death Row, and they basically beat him down. So they do this, they leave the casino, and a few hours later, Tupac and Suge were on their way to Club 662 when a white Cadillac pulled up beside the car Tupac and Suge were in and opened up with flying projectiles on Tupac, hitting him several times and grazing Suge Knight once in the head. Now, it's been argued that he may not have actually been hit by that, and instead of by flying shrapnel. Nobody really knows. Tupac would pass on, though, 6 days later. At that point, all that was known was that it was a white Cadillac with 4 people in it. It would later come out to be Terrence Brown driving, Keefe D in the front passenger seat. DeAndre Smith was behind the driver in the rear driver's seat, and Orlando Anderson was in the back passenger seat. Now, interesting fact, the day after the attack, it said that DeAndre Smith was bragging and saying, "I let off on Tupac," implying he was the culprit and not Orlando. So at this point, Tupac's gone, and they're trying to figure out what happened. As the years go by, it's been 27 years since this happened. Several theories came up, and between law enforcement and fans of Tupac. So let's talk about these theories. Number one, Puffy had him taken out, as in Sean Puffy Combs. Death Row employed LAPD officers. So the story goes, in the height of this feud between Bad Boy Records and Death Row, Puffy got scared of Suge. At the 95 Soul Train Awards, this, I believe, was when Suge called Bad Boy Records out. The whole, if you want to be part of a group that doesn't have the producer all up in the videos and such, you know the video. I believe that's where this was. Anyway, after this award show, Puffy's bodyguard claims that Puffy said at a party, "I don't care if Pac gotta die. I don't care if Biggie gotta die. I don't care if Suge gotta go to jail. But something has to change." Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, later on, excuse me, in December of 95, according to a friend of Puffy's, Mark Anthony Bell, he claims that Suge Knight beat him up and asked him for Puffy's address, personal address. Shortly after that, so early 96, according to Keefe D, who is Orlando Anderson's uncle, Puffy met with him at a concert and first approached him about the idea of getting rid of Tupac and Suge. Allegedly, they met several times and talked about this, and allegedly, Puffy offered him $1 million to do the deed. This is allegedly. This is according to Keefe D. But that's the only evidence of this. And I've been seeing a lot of videos lately that are implying that Puffy's the next one to be arrested. I kind of disagree with that. I don't think Puffy really had. He kind of had a motive, but not really. And I just don't think that Puffy would do that. I think Puffy was more concerned about making his money than getting rid of somebody. I don't think Puffy would put his money and his business in jeopardy like that. Just my opinion. All right, let's go on to theory number 2. Suge got rid of him. So we all know the facts around this. Tupac was rumored to have been trying to leave Death Row Records. Suge Knight had recently lost Dr. Dre when he left Death Row. And Tupac was his biggest moneymaker. So, yeah, there's a little bit of motive there. Also, Suge Knight owed Tupac a lot of money for royalties on his music. And he was trying to cook the books with his lawyer that Tupac had fired to make it look like he didn't really owe Tupac as much money as he did. And Tupac found out about this. Some say, some of the people involved with Death Row and that knew that group of people say that when Tupac fired David Kenner, he signed his death sentence. Now, this theory, in my opinion, makes no sense for a couple reasons. First off, most people who knew Suge Knight knew he had tendencies for violence. And most of them say that if Suge wanted to get rid of you, you just disappeared. Nobody heard from you again. So why would he get rid of Tupac so publicly, for one? And number 2, why would you have somebody taken out by flying projectiles when you're sitting right next to him in the vehicle? That makes no sense whatsoever. Anybody in their right mind would not do that, especially somebody who's been involved with crime most of their life. I mean, as the old saying goes, practice makes perfect. I'm sure Suge had a lot of practice with this stuff. He knew the right way and the wrong way to do it. So I really don't think that happened. Also, there was a test done, an independent group tested the theory, and they set it up to where they had 2 cars set up like it really happened, and as if the culprit was pointing behind them as they drove past Tupac's car, which would be the ideal thing to do if you were trying to hit Tupac and not Suge. The results of that test, they set up dummies to simulate Tupac and Suge in the car, same size and everything as the real Suge and Tupac. Tupac was hit 5 or 6 times. and Suge was hit 4 or 5 times, and 2 or 3 of them would have been fatal. So it makes no sense, and this was done by a professional shooter. So this makes no sense whatsoever that Suge would plan it out that way. It doesn't hold water at all. Yes, he had motive, you could say. You know, he was trying to stop Tupac from doing his own thing. But I don't see him doing it that way. All right. Theory number 3. The police did it. The theory is LAPD had a motive because Tupac had allegedly tried to eliminate cops. Remember the story I told you about the Halloween incident where he got into a scuffle with 2 undercover cops and projectiles were fired. So the theory is because he allegedly tried to eliminate those officers and he rapped about it, that police had the motive to take him out. Death Row employed LAPD officers also. So they could have been working with Death Row to do this, which kind of ties in with the Suge Knight. He could have had police, but I still don't believe the Suge Knight theory. Anyway, the night that Tupac met his demise, his bodyguard, Frank Alexander, was told not to bring any protection to the club or a radio. Had his radio taken away. Michael Moore, another bodyguard who was there that night, was taken off of Tupac's security because he refused to go anywhere without protection and radio. Well, Michael Moore was there that night and he kept his radio on him. So right after it went down, Michael Moore heard on the radio, got him. Followed by another person saying, don't say anything on the radio. Sounds a little bit suspicious. Shortly after that, both of those bodyguards passed under mysterious circumstances. Interesting. And so Knight claimed that NYPD officer Rafael Perez was involved, and they were trying to take he and Tupac out. I think this theory is possible. Although, again, it seems like the only evidence of this is people saying that they were involved. So I'm not too keen on accepting this theory. Okay, so that brings us to theory number 4. Suge was the target in an attempt to take over Death Row Records. Death Row was worth $500 million. They had hundreds of songs that Tupac had already recorded, just sitting there ready to be released. David Kenner, remember, was the lawyer who Tupac fired Well, he got Snoop off of a serious charge. If you know if you know Snoop's music and history, you know about this charge. Very serious charge. He could have gone away for the rest of his life. But David Kenner got him off. But when it came around to Suge Knight getting charged with something, he didn't. So the theory is that David Kenner had the help of bad cops to get rid of Suge and take over the company. And Suge he accused Rafael Perez of being involved in this. Again, other than accusations, there's no actual evidence of this. It's he said, she said. Suge Knight claims that they were going to do this. They deny it. So you can't really say for sure if that was the truth. So hold on a second. So the next theory is the police theory that Orlando Smith, after getting jumped in the casino, he got jumped in the casino, and he met up with his uncle, Keefe D, who got a pew-pew from allegedly DeAndre Smith or Terrence Brown. It was one of them. I can't remember which one. And they all got into this white Cadillac and proceeded to try to track down Tupac. First, they went to Club 662, which is where Tupac was headed. They sat there and waited for 20 minutes or so and then decided to head out, and they went to a liquor store. And then they just decided to drive around and see if they got lucky and tracked them down. Well, as they were driving around, these girls saw Tupac and Suge in a car and started screaming, and Tupac was yelling back at them, and that's how they found him. Anyway, so Terrence Brown was driving. Keefe D was in the front passenger seat. DeAndre Smith was behind the driver in the back driver's side, and Orlando Smith was in the back passenger seat. Allegedly, Keefe D handed the pew-pew to the back seat. DeAndre Smith said he didn't want to do it. So the theory is Orlando Smith took it and attacked Tupac with it. This is according to statements made by Keefe D. However, this has been debated because, for one, DeAndre Smith was bragging the next day and said that he did it. And number two, they're driving along. They pull up on the passenger side of Tupac's car. So that means that Orlando Smith is on the opposite side of the car because he's in the passenger side of their car. So if Orlando Smith did it, he would have had to lean over DeAndre Smith to do it. Well, everybody involved, or everybody that knew DeAndre Smith, knew that he was 300 or 400 pounds. So they're not so sure that he would be able to lean down to avoid getting hit by flying shells. And then you have, again, the fact that allegedly he was bragging the next day saying, I let off on Tupac. All right. So now let's talk about Keefe D. Keefe D, 27 years after the fact, was recently arrested for the demise of Tupac. Police officer Greg Kading came across Keefe D while he was investigating the demise of Biggie Smalls. It turns out a drug dealer in New York, Eric Zip Martin, was associated with Puffy and was also involved with Keefe D. Keefe D supplied him with narcotics and other stuff. So basically, police found this out and they set Keefe D up on drug charges, big drug charges. This was big enough to where he would have been put away for life. So what they did after they set him up and planned this out, in exchange for leniency, they offered Keefe D with a proffer agreement. It's also called a Queen for a Day agreement, which means whatever Keefe D told them that day could not be used against him. Now, the catch was, and in my opinion, police purposely didn't explain this, but that's beside the point. But the catch was, if he repeated this story in the future, and in doing so, his story changed, or he said new stuff that he didn't say the first time, then that eliminated the proffer agreement and he could be then prosecuted for what he said, and it could all be used against him. So fast forward a few years, not sure the exact year. This happened in the past 6 or 7 years. Keefe D writes a book about it, explaining his involvement and everything. And then he started doing YouTube interviews. Did quite a few. I've seen at least 3 or 4 myself. And in each one, he tells the story ever so slightly different. 1 or 2 details here and there changed. So, therefore, once he did that, proffer agreement was gone, which allowed police to then arrest him and charge him with what he's charged with now. If you've been following the case, you know what I mean. If not, you can look it up. So basically, Keefe D talked himself into prison. Not too smart for somebody who's a lifelong member of a notorious gang. So, with all these theories and ideas about what really happened, whether it was Puffy tried to take him out, Suge Knight tried to take him out, police tried to take him out, this, that, and the other. In my opinion, the theory that makes the most sense is the police's theory. And that's the most simple theory, but I think a lot of times the most obvious thing is the correct thing. The most obvious conclusion is the correct conclusion. In this case, I think that is the case, which is that Keefe D, DeAndre Smith, Orlando Anderson, and the other guy, I forgot his name, tracked Tupac down. And either Orlando Anderson or DeAndre Smith took Tupac out. That part is debatable because if he really was that big and couldn't crouch down, then who's going to sit there while stuff's flying at your face? I want to tend to lean more toward Orlando Anderson did it, but it's debatable. We'll see what happens in court. But I think it's that simple. They beat Orlando Anderson up, so he went and got his uncle and his uncle's buddies, and they went and took Tupac out for beating Orlando up. It's just that simple. Yeah, some of the things in the other theories could be plausible, but there's too many holes in the other theories for them to have been true. So, what do you guys think? Leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe. Join me on my next live, and we will try to start a discussion. I'm trying to have some people come up on panel and tell us what you think. What really happened to Tupac? Hope you guys have a good night and make somebody smile today or tomorrow. It might be the exact same. It might be the exact thing they need. Have a good evening. Peace.